Okay, hi guys. Thank you again. Well, we're on a roll here because we have yet another interview for this week. And I am joined by Toni, and we actually, I guess, quote unquote, met through Facebook. I believe I'm in one or two of the groups that she's a moderator for.
That is
Um,
correct, yeah.
and yeah, they belong to the AMBW groups. And so I'm a big fan of those groups. I've met a lot of people through these groups, and established a lot of cool friendships, and met all kinds of people on there. So tonight we are talking with Toni, and to be honest, I had known nothing about this woman. No, I don't know anything about her, but that's why we're here, because we want to get to know her, and welcome her to the channel. So Toni, welcome to the channel.
Thank
Again,
you very
yeah.
much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. So yeah, why don't you, like I said, this interview is never about me, and these interviews are never about me. So they're about other people. So, just tell about, yeah, just sort of tell us about yourself.
Um, I live in Dallas, Texas currently, and I am a educator in the area. Been here for like 20 years, I suppose, and have been kind of part of like the AMBW movement, probably for about just that long as well. Um, to say I have led a very part of my experience, or part of things that inform my experience, would be that I'm a military brat. So I've lived overseas, been raised around a lot of different cultures, and being a military brat, you do come in contact with a lot of different races and cultures on a regular basis, and so it becomes like old hat to you, and you don't generally start to see those differences, or it doesn't, you just see people as your friends and all of this, that, and the other, and you see things as unusual and different, but you kind of get used to those types of things. And so when you grow up and you get older and you start to learn biases and all of those things that are taught, that, you really kind of start to see the differences between people. But fortunately, that was something that I never grew out of. So being a military brat definitely informs my experiences in how I view the world.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, interesting. I've talked to a few other people on here who are also had that kind of background and experience, and so yeah, so that must have been really interesting. So my first inclination would be to ask you exactly what, talk more about your AMBW, but like I'm actually kind of more interested right now in what it was like growing up for you in the military, and sort of how that ultimately shaped your view of the world, your experiences, because like obviously from an outsider's perspective, we really don't know that much about it unless we have any friends or family, that are in the military, or whatever we see in the movies and Hollywood and all that stuff. But I imagine it is quite different. So would you mind talking a little bit about that?
No, not at all. And it's a great opportunity to. So, I really enjoy, or let's put it like this: looking back on it at this juncture, I am grateful for being a military brat. When I was younger and I was a kid, and we would move all over the place like every 4 years. It was hard on me at the time because you make these friends, and then 4 years later you leave these friends, and pretty much never to be seen again. And that was really hard on me as a kid. But what was interesting is, having lived overseas, having experienced those different cultures, having to experience food from everywhere. My God, I remember there was a time when we traveled to was it a German guest house? Well, they call them Gasthaus. And I ate schnitzel for the very first time. And God, what I had to have probably been in like maybe 10. No, I was like 12 or 13 at the time. And I ate schnitzel for the very first time. And it was like the most delicious thing that I had ever had, because it was this, this veal with gravy, and then pommes frites, and then, ate those, which is basically French fries, right?
Mhm.
But it was so good. And then having that taste in my mouth, like a of what schnitzel is supposed to taste like, nothing else has ever compared to it. So,
Mm,
and it's the same with going to Italy and eating marinara and then coming back to America and eating marinara. And it's like, no, it's just definitely not the same. So that was always very interesting, is the different experiences that I would take, the experiences that I would take in through my mouth, and all of the and what's fortunate is that, having lived in Europe, you I lived in England, and we had an opportunity to go to France, and so France was literally like a boat ride away. So we
mm,
would go to France, and then you could kind of hop around to the different European countries, and and so you had and each country has their own culture, and most of them have their own languages, and but it was really cool because in each country several people would know different types of languages, different languages. They'd know French and they'd know German because they were Belgian and they were right Germany. So, I know like a little bit of like several different languages because, that was kind of how one got around. But in retrospect, as an adult, I am eternally grateful for those experiences and for having had those opportunities, because I see things from a whole world perspective, as
mm,
opposed to, just the narrow blinders of being an American.
mm,
Anybody who ever says to me that as a matter of fact, there was a person that said to me one time that, travel is a waste of money. And I clutched my pearls because I was like, that's to hear you say that is crazy, because your mind expands and opens up, and you have a broader consideration for things, when you travel, because you realize that we are not just, we're not an island. America seems to think that they're an island.
mm.
And I find that I feel like I think differently than a lot of Americans because of my experiences as a child. But I truly believe that it makes me a better person, for having had those experiences in my life.
Right. Yeah, that's great. So I wish I could say the same, that I've actually traveled to a lot of different parts of the world. I have traveled, though obviously not nearly as extensive as, like someone like you or pretty much anyone else I know.
Mm,
I seem to be surrounded by people who love to travel, and I always hear about, their exploits in, like different countries or different states,
hmm.
and all that stuff. It sounds fun. I don't know. I just never seem to really have the time to get around to it. I've been to many airports in different different stops, commuting and whatnot from
Right.
different places and airplanes. But yeah, no, but yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great.
Have you ever been outside of the US?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've
Okay.
I've traveled to Asia. I went to Hong Kong, and I went to mainland China like over 20 years ago.
Okay.
But yeah. So I think actually back then, kind of what like you were saying, I had a different perspective on it because I was like 13 or 14 at that time. So I honestly was excited for it, but I also had, I also was kind of like, I don't really. Nah, I mean, I honestly felt like, okay, everyone around me is making a big deal about it, and I'm not necessarily making as big a deal as they are. And like I said, it was a really long ass trip. I mean, it's my first time, um, I guess consciously traveling overseas to Asia because I had done it as a baby, but
Mm,
as a young person or whatever, that was my first time. So I
mhm,
went to different parts of China. We went to the Great Wall. We went to
mm.
Beijing. We went to crap, two other places, Guilin, and then another city I forget.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a long time ago. Then went to Hong Kong, of course, and then and I've been to Mexico too. I've been to
Okay.
Mexico. Who
Mhm.
hasn't? But
That
yeah,
counts.
yeah,
That
absolutely.
counts.
Spring break.
That is out of the country. That is
Yeah,
technically out of the country, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, spring break. No, I'm just kidding. No, I didn't go there for spring break. I wish though, but yeah, no.
Oh,
So yeah, that's great. That's honestly great. I actually have a fear of flying though.
oh yeah.
I don't love it. So
Oh,
I actually prefer driving. Um,
okay.
yeah, I'll even take a bus or a train, but it's just flying. No, thank
Um,
you. Um,
and I've gotten to the place now. I mean, and China is definitely one of the spots that's on my my list. But it's that flight. I'm at the place now where I'm like, ugh, I don't know if I can sit for 15, 20 hours on a flight. I took a trip to, I think I was on my way to Kenya once,
Mm.
and having to go through Dubai to get to Kenya and spend 8 hours there, and and I was tired and turned around time wise and all of that other stuff. I'm getting to a place where I'm like, yeah, probably not going to be doing nearly as much traveling as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but nonetheless, there's still places that, that I need to experience, that I feel that it's like, they're on my bucket list. So it's like, if I got to get to those places, and then probably once I hit those places, China being one of them, Japan being another, the Maldives.
Mm.
I'm just like, the Maldives is definitely going to be a place that I want to go, and I want to go to Madagascar.
Oh wow,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so it's like, these are the places, these are on my bucket list, and once I kind of do my bucket list of certain places that I've always wanted to visit, and I gotta go to South Africa as well. I went
Mm.
to Kenya, and that was incredible, and I would absolutely do it again. But I got to get to Cape Town, and then once I'm done with those like 5 or 6 trips, then I'm probably going to be done leaving the country.
Mm. Yeah, I had a friend who a lot while ago, like over a decade ago, but I had a friend who traveled to Africa, and she posted some pictures of the safari that she went on. I was like, God damn you! I'm so fucking jealous. It was just like, I hate it. I think it's great that people get to travel, but I just get overturned with like jealousy when people post the
Me
pictures.
too. Me too. I totally do. I have a friend of mine who just, she has so many miles, like she just racks up miles and she goes to places for free because she travels just that often. And I hate her.
Mm.
Like, whenever she's like, "Oh yeah, I was, in Paris, and I was like, shut up."
Yes. Yeah, yeah, but yeah, this yeah. Speaking about bucket list, yeah, that's definitely on my bucket list is to travel, to places like Africa and places like even even places like uh the Arctic. I'd love to go there. I'd love to go to like these desert, wildernesses. You know what I mean? That it's just totally, that places I guess like no person is supposed to go to or whatever. You know what I mean? Because I
Okay.
want to see, I want to travel these places. However, I say that, and most of it's not gonna happen. So like I might travel outside to Ralph's or to the grocery store. That's the much traveling that I've done in the past month or
You're right.
so.
You're like, yeah, oof, that was a long journey
Yeah,
from the Ralphs back home. I'm tired. I gotta lay it on down. Yeah, trust me, I've had days like that for sure.
exactly. Well, so get back to AMBW. So, I guess like, what is your, I mean, like I said, this channel we do everything AMBW related. We've done literally almost everything from like short films, to actual blind Zoom dates that I've set up between basically complete strangers that are not scripted, not planned at all. We just turn on the
Okay.
camera, we just hit record and see what happens. And we've done couples tags, and of course we've done a lot of interviews and stuff. And everyone has their own sort of I guess reason, or what I mean, like, any not reason, but like I guess interest in AMBW. You know what I mean? And whether it's like
Hmm.
more into whether they've got sort of attached to, like, you're interested in the different cultures, whether it's like Korean culture or Japanese culture or Taiwanese, whatever. You know what I mean? Or maybe they just they just grew up around a lot of Asian people, or
Hmm.
vice versa, Black people, and so that's what they're used to. You know what I mean? So, and honestly, I think sort of going deeper into the meaning of it, you know what I mean? Like, sort of just showing that love is love ultimately, and I feel like that is a very common, but it's also a very beautiful sentiment,
Hmm.
ultimately. And I feel, me personally, I feel like I have, up to this point in my life, I have gone out with all kinds of women, from, I mean, no, mostly all American, right? But obviously y'all here, but like all different races, all different kinds of personalities,
Hmm.
even ages. I've even gone out with girls that were maybe a decade or so older than me, or maybe
Hmm.
younger than me. Um, and so, but yeah, so I guess when it comes down to it, I feel like AMW is great because I feel like Asian men and Black women are very like basically marginalized
Mm,
by the world at large.
mm-hmm,
I feel like a lot of that has to do with the media. I feel like the
mm,
media definitely has sort of I don't know, like an agenda or whatever, but basically they like putting people, certain people of color, like Asian men and black women especially, down. Basically, they like sort of
mm,
keeping them down and sort of lifting other people up and objectifying other people. And I just feel like that's an unfortunate sort of thing that we have in common, Asian men and black women.
mm,
But when it comes
mm.
down to it, I feel like actually Asian men and black women do have a lot in common. I don't feel like that's the only thing that we have in common. So that being said, what is your interest in AMBW?
Um, and I really love everything that you just said just now, because those were going to a degree, they were going to be some of my talking points.
Mm,
Um, because I agree with you 100%. Um, I think my initial quote unquote introduction to AMBW was as a kid, being the military brat, and next door um, a white husband, a Thai mom, and their Thai son John moved in next door. And if it would be so funny, because if my parents heard me having this conversation, they would be like, "Oh my God, she remembers that little boy." But yeah, there was a little boy next door, and his name was John, and he was Thai, he um, and he not necessarily that I was in love with him, because I was little, I was a kid, you know what I mean.
mhm,
But at some juncture, I think he just made it very clear, and I mean, we are literally like 6, 7, 8 years old or something like that, and he was like, "Well, you're my girlfriend." And I was like, uh all right,
mhm,
whatever that entailed at that time, right?
mhm,
um and um and to and his mom was like, she was very loving, very accepting. We used to she used to cut crab apples for us, and then she would like make this chili pepper sauce, and she would like dip the crab apples in the chili pepper sauce and like feed them to us,
mhm,
and I just that thought that was precious. Um so as a kid, that's my imprint to Asian culture, right?
mhm,
Is Thai people and chili sauces and crab apples, and her eating things like snake, and introducing us to snake, and snake skin chips, and things like that, right? So
mhm,
and I was never the kind of person that would be like, that's gross. I was always like, snake skin chips, let me try that, that
mhm,
type of thing. I've always been that way. So um, that is, again, so as a 6 or 7 year old, that is my initial introduction into the Asian culture.
mhm,
Um, and 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 so later on, it just did not even occur to me that that it would be problematic in any way for me to when I got older, for me to date an Asian man. And it really wasn't. And so basically, I agree with you when you say that Asian men and Black women are in a marginalized community in the dating pool. We
mhm,
are the last to be chosen
mhm,
by white men, white women, Black men, and Asian women. Asian women will, in my understanding, and this was like, OK Cupid did like a very informal study regarding this, but it's one that they keep doing, that's ongoing,
yeah,
and it has not changed since they've been doing this study since I think 2008,
yes,
and it's 2021, and this study has not changed. Black women and Asian men are still one of the most marginalized groups when it comes to dating, which to me is like, but it is what it is. And I think that that um, when I was introduced to that, or when I realized that, I was like, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense to me. And so when when I came to that understanding, and when I came to that realization, I started a meetup group for Asian men and Black women in the DFW area. And then women from outside of the DFW area were like, is there an Asian, is there a, AMBW group here? And I was like, no, there isn't, but why don't you start one? And they were like, oh, well, I couldn't start one. So I would start up AMBW meetup groups in other cities, because it's
Mhm.
like, okay, even I can't be there to, put together things. So it's like, I'm going to designate this person to be a moderator along with me, and maybe they'll do it too. So we had like an AMBW DC, we had an AMBW DFW, we had an AMBW Florida. We had like a couple of different AMBW groups, meetup groups. And then I think that is around the time when things started getting super popular with Facebook, and this was like years ago, obviously, but things started getting really big with Facebook. So I said, let me move these groups um, onto Facebook. So I literally picked the AMBW name for the group. It wasn't taken, which lets you know clearly how unpopular that movement was at the time.
Mhm.
Um, and started inviting people in, started inviting people in that were from those meetup groups, and moved them over to Facebook. And then with the onset of the K wave, and Korean dramas becoming very popular and all of that other stuff, and then also Black women realizing that they love anime, and they have an audience, they
Yeah.
are, and it's like, oh, there are other Black women that like anime, and ooh, and just so basically, like, I would have to say that like gaming and the K wave and anime is really what kind of, particularly when it comes to women, is what my group was really inundated with. And
Mhm.
so, and me personally, that wasn't ever my objective. I wasn't, don't get it twisted. I love a good Korean drama. I love, the sweetness of them for the most part. And I haven't watched a K drama in a long time, but whenever it's like, I just need something that's just sweet. I don't
Yeah.
want to watch Disney, but let me just watch a K drama.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I do love them, but that was not my influence when it came to my connection or my desire to connect with Asian men. Um, but again, a lot of gamer girls and K drama girls um, and cosplay girls definitely flooded my group, not just because those are the things that they enjoy doing, but because they also appreciated the culture from which they came from.
Mhm.
Um, and it's interesting because when I'm in my groups, there are a ton more women in these groups than there are Asian men. So in my group in particular, I will I vet everybody that comes into my group.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean personally vet, which is why it takes so long to get into my group, because I will go in, I look at the person, I look how long they've been on Facebook, I look at how many other groups they're in. I look at who they have friends with in the group. I go to their page. If their page doesn't have anything on it, or they're kind of trolls, or they're if I see some stuff on there that has the N word or anything like
Mhm.
that, you don't get in the group. And it's not like I'm God and I'm like, oh, you can get in this group and it's going to be amazing, because we're a pretty tame group for the most part,
Yeah.
because what it's meant for is just a doorway, just to you know open up the opportunity for you to meet somebody who appreciates you, not necessarily just for your race, but for the things that but they can see past that. They want to see past that. They are more, to a degree, they're a little bit more interested in you because, you're Asian, or because you're a Black woman. And, if you have that preference in your dating pool, well, AMBW is definitely the way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And also, okay. So we're back. So sorry. So yeah, where I left off. in terms of the study that OkCupid did. Like I was saying, I have a lot of experience with online dating, probably more so than the average Asian male, probably more so than the average like human being. Because
Oh, I doubt that.
well, I'm not I don't know if I call myself a serial dater per se, but I do have a lot of stamina, and I am someone that I like saying this, but sort of yeah. So basically, I feel like me personally, this is sort of like a separate metaphor, but basically, I'm sort of a quote unquote struggling artist, and a lot of the other people that I associate with myself, associate with in my life, are also artists who tend to be good at different things.
Mhm.
Except my main thing is that I'm good at just being persistent. So that's sort of my talent. So
Okay.
that yeah, so that definitely comes in handy when online dating. And so when I first tried online dating, it was definitely an experience. It wasn't really positive experience. I I learned a lot though. I did learn a lot. I did learn the importance of being very upfront about pretty much everything,
Mm,
including your height, including what you're looking for, including what you're not looking for, and including well, I guess later on I would learn this, but that if I had known the importance of saying don't waste my time on
mm,
online dating sites,
yeah.
that a lot of people might have actually listened to that.
No, right.
Yeah,
For sure.
and so, but when I first tried online dating, it was very, like I said, it wasn't great. I got, I was, and when I first started, I was in my early to mid 20s, and I feel like a lot of people, that I met, obviously all of them were girls or women, young women, and I didn't know this, but I would find out the hard way that among the many problems that I encountered with online dating was that girls in their 20s really just don't know what they want, and a lot of them, uh, just don't necessarily know how to say that or don't really realize it until maybe like a few months in or a few dates in or whatever, a little bit later. They're not upfront about it.
Mm,
And then I also realized that just a lot of them just weren't ready to. I don't know. It's like I said, it's just a variety. There's a whole like cacophony of reasons why it didn't work out.
mhm.
But I did actually publish a book and I sold it on Amazon Kindle, and it's a sort of
Wow.
like a guide for like single Asian men for to use when online dating, because like I said, I have a lot of experiences online dating, and a lot of them were not great. But then the
I
later,
saw that and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I saw that you talked to JT Tran, who was one of the original members who was in one of my meetup groups way back in the day.
Mhm.
And then I think he's also probably still a member of the AMBW group that I moderate.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I did talk to JT. I talked to him. Was it yesterday? Literally yesterday.
Oh, was it
Um,
yesterday? Okay.
yeah, yeah. So like I said, I've been on a roll with these things. These interviews. It's just every day, but I don't mind. I actually really like it a lot. But yeah, like I was telling him, I had a lot. It's like they say, live and learn. And I think in my 20s, I had like one or two, relationships, that actually resulted from online dating.
Okay.
Again, like I said, I think when I was in my 20s, it was sort of like learning. I didn't know what I was doing, to be completely
Mm,
honest with you. I didn't have like a guide like I do now. I
mm,
mean, I didn't, because ultimately I didn't, like I said, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't, I had to learn everything basically the hard way. And
mm.
it took me at least a few years, literally like a few years, not weeks or days, but a few years to
Years, yeah.
finally, yeah, to finally sort of just not only continue but also learn how to date the smart way
Mm,
ultimately. And I feel like a lot of people, no matter what your age, don't really date smart, and so as a result, sort of dating ultimately becomes kind of this like trolling kind of process of like trolling ultimately, because I feel
mm,
how I feel ultimately about dating is like basically playing the romantic lottery. You know what I mean?
It is. Oh, 100%. I agree
Yeah,
with you 1,000,000%. You got to go through, I mean, you got to go through a lot of frogs, right?
yeah. And I feel like when it comes to playing the lottery, a lot of people are just sort of just doing it for fun, right? Nobody really expects really to
Mm,
win, right? I mean, because I mean, think about it. You know what I mean? Like a lot. Like I remember when my when I was young, and my mom or dad would just take us out shopping, whatever, and they'd always stop in the market and just get a ticket. Or I'd see other people just going out to get a ticket. I've never personally played the lottery as an adult, but I just in general, I feel like people in general, there would be lot less wasting time if people were upfront and literally just use my method. And I know this literally sounds like a giant plug or commercial for my book, but
No,
it's
I mean,
not.
and I'm actually no, because I mean, and I totally get where you're coming from here. Excuse me, I totally get where you're coming from here because I've kind of been at this game for a while too.
Mm,
And it and but it's like because I've been in this in this quote unquote dating game for a while, particularly online, and I mean, and I know, I know emphatically that I'm older than you, so therefore, I've been doing this from like way back. And it's not that I have a problem meeting people or talking to people or anything like that. It's just that as an adult, we don't have those same clubs that we used to have when we were kids, right? When we
yeah.
were kids, you had school, you had soccer, you had maybe, depending on whether or not you had these things, you could go to the rec center and, meet up with other kids. And so it's just like there were all of these avenues in which people were coming into your life. And as an adult, it's work, maybe
Hmm.
school. If you decide to join a league of some sort, tennis or bowling or whatever, that's going to be, that might be an avenue. I hate clubbing, can't stand it. I don't like being around that many people, and I don't like people touching on me. And, it's just, COVID was a relief for me. Or
It's okay. It's
sorry.
okay. It's all
But
right.
it was a relief for me because it's just like I had the opportunity to not go out. But yes, but this online dating thing, um, allows people to just really kind of play games with people's lives and just swipe right and swipe left and let's see who talks to me and let's ooh, I don't like the way that person's nose is set, and all of that. And yes, I think online dating makes people a lot more cavalier, um
Mm.
and not really as serious because and so let me ask you this, and I understand that you said that you're interviewing me, but I have questions as well.
Oh yeah, sure.
Um, did you find yourself doing that when you were going through when you're going through OK Cupid, Tinder, or anything to that effect, and you find yourself swiping right on somebody? Um, did you swipe right with the intention of really trying to formulate a connection with that person or simply trying to get with that person?
I was okay. So that's I don't think I fit under either category, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
So a lot of my book, and I swear to God, I'm not trying to plug my book, but yes, I do have a book, so it will come up. A lot of my book does detail a lot of this, and what I think is the most interesting part is that this all sort of started with me basically trying to get over a particular someone,
Mm,
a young woman that I met way back, almost a little over 10 years ago, to this year, back in 2011.
okay.
We actually did not meet online.
Okay.
As the story goes, and as the saying goes, it's usually the better way is to meet, whether a man or woman, whatever, is to meet them in person in the real
Yeah,
world.
for sure.
Everybody, I think deep down, we all sort of know that. We all want that to happen, but we don't
Mhm,
necessarily, have the patience for it. So, but
mhm,
anyway, so I did meet this girl, uh, in person through kind of like different circumstances, but I met her, and we ultimately went out, a couple times, and it was honestly, like the first one of the first dating experiences I had. It was definitely the first dating experience I had out of college, because I
mhm,
had graduated college not that long before, back in 2009. So
mhm,
it only been like less than 2 years, and I didn't really know how to meet anybody. To be
mhm,
honest, I really didn't know if I would meet anybody. I mean, obviously, I shouldn't have been thinking it that way because I was really young. I was only what, like 22 or 23. So I had a lot of things yet to happen, but at the same time, I was starting to feel kind of lonely. And
Mm,
this is like kind of like a prelude to me going on online dating, but it does ultimately lead to that. So anyway, like sort of back in those days, I kind of felt like, okay, like I could just wait until I can meet someone in person, because I had just come out of school, and back in school, like you said, when you're in college and you're a kid and all that stuff, like you tend to meet people just naturally. You bump into them sometimes literally. You meet people in class, you meet people on campus, at work, whatever. But I think in general, it's a healthier way to meet people, right? If you
I agree.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And if you have that option, you should definitely take advantage of it. But I feel like, so I was stuck in those sort of days. So when I met this particular girl, it was like I said, we met in person, and she was great. I mean, she honestly was one of the first few girls I'd ever literally gone out on a date with,
Okay.
and I didn't realize it at the time, but like I ultimately kind of like fell for her. And I know that's very cliche to say, but honestly, I'm not actually like I'm not I don't want to criticize or be criticized, for making that kind of statement, because I feel like when if someone does feel romantic love for another human being, that's their experience. There's
Okay.
no way you can invalidate it. There's no way I can invalidate someone else's experience of saying they're in love with someone,
Right.
because if you're in love, then you're in love. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize it at first, of course, because I was a young kid. I was like 23 or 24 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day, I got into a sort of argument, or I did get into an argument with this girl, and and then so I ended up calling her a bad mom, um, which is, yeah. So yes, yep, I got that same reaction from literally everyone I told the story to. It's not, no, trust me. It No, but see, so that's what spurred my. So obviously she got pissed, and I met her for lunch a few weeks later and tried to explain everything, and she was like, "No, I'm sorry, I'm done." So my first time, meeting someone that I actually liked really a lot, you know what I mean, and that liked me, and I fucked it up so badly.
That is
Really.
actually what led to something similar led to my divorce.
Oh wow.
Um, and I think it was because he called my son a name is what it
Oh
was. And
wow.
it wasn't even like derogatory or anything like that, but I was like,
Mm,
excuse me? I was like, I birthed this child. Like this child came out of me and you think that I'm just going to be cool with you just, calling my kid, get your shit and get out of my house. Like literally, I was
yeah.
like, you gotta go. I was like, because if you would sit there and disrespect my kid to my face and think that I would go along with that, you so have another thing coming. But I shouldn't have gotten married in the first place. It was a really bad decision on my part. But please continue.
Oh yeah, no, and I'm sorry, by the way, that all that happened to you. That
Oh,
I'm sure that was
it was
very
a long
painful.
time ago, but thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
So my story, like I said, I really, really felt terrible after that. I tried, literally, like I just said, I tried making it up to this girl. I tried, meeting her in person. I mean, it's just all of this was sort of happening very fast, and I felt like I did get attached to her fairly quickly.
Mm,
But at the same time, again, like I was not expecting to meet anybody,
mm,
right? I was not expecting, and then let alone the way that I did, it kind of, I felt like it was almost like kind of poetic. It made sense
mm,
of how she and me, we met. It made sense. It was just so organic, and it felt like everything was going right.
mm,
And then, of course, I lost my temper and said a lot of things that I still to this day regret.
mm.
Because, but yeah, so anyway, so that happened, and so a year passed, and I honestly still hadn't gotten over this chick. Still can I was just still sort of in a very messy emotional mind state, and
I actually
and
like that. I mean, I actually really appreciate that. Like the fact that, and because part of, so I'm going to say something and tell me if it sounds off the cuff when I say what I say. But part what I appreciate about Asian culture is that not necessarily that Asian men are more sensitive. I'm not going to say that. Um, what I appreciate is that there's not that toxicity about how you feel about someone. You understand what I'm saying when I say that?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I feel kind of, I guess, kind of translating, I guess, how I think, like, or what you're saying. I feel like
Yeah,
Asian
and I
men in
hope that
general.
I hope that I'm saying it right, because
So,
I don't want to, be politically incorrect when I say it, and I don't want to sound like I'm generalizing a whole, group of people. But it's like, I what I appreciate is the fact that you can say that, I really fucked up, and I really liked her, and I was really messed up about it, and so on and so forth, because we don't, as women, we don't often get to hear, um, you hear about women all the time. Oh, I really loved him, and he was just the one for me, and I really thought, but
yeah,
you hear that all the time from women, but you don't ever
exactly.
really get to hear that side, when it comes to men.
Hmm.
But yeah, go ahead, carry on. Sorry.
Um, no, it's fun. I feel like, honestly, yeah. So yeah, so I still hadn't gotten over her. So I really, it was kind of weird because after, okay, sorry, so rewinding a little bit. So right after, like, I had, met her again for coffee or lunch or whatever, I was basically begging her for, for her to forgive me, and so, we could go out again, and fix things up and just continue from there. So
Mhm,
obviously, predictably, she said no.
mhm,
And I was, didn't help me at all. I felt like shit after that still. So
mhm,
and she gave me all sorts of excuses. And like I said, with the same thing, online dating, I was naive. I didn't
mhm,
know how to interpret everything, and I just sort of took everything that she was saying as the truth, basically, because I was inexperienced in that area.
mhm,
And so one of the things that she told me was that, well, I'm new to LA, because she was a transplant. She moved to LA from Texas. That's where I am, by the way. I'm in Los Angeles. But
uh,
anyway, so I was in LA, and she was like, "Yeah, I moved here to be an actress, all that stuff, and I deal with my family, and I'm just like, when I met you, like, I didn't really know what I was doing, and you were one of the first people that I met and all that stuff, and it just sounded like she was kind of making up excuses. There was
mhm,
a bunch of BS that was coming out of her mouth.
mhm,
And she was like, okay, basically, I'm not looking for a relationship right now. And then, like, a month later, I look at her on Facebook, and it says that she was in a relationship, and that, like, really fucked me up. So yeah, 2011 was not my favorite year.
mhm.
It was a significant year, but not, what
Not your
happened
favorite for
was not
sure.
great.
Mhm,
And so a year had passed, and like I said, I was not over this chick. So now we jump to the online dating stages, and I
mhm,
was trying to get over Adriana. That's her name.
mhm.
I was trying to get over Adriana, and it was very, very hard. So I went on OkCupid. I didn't know what the fuck OkCupid was, but I did it. And here's a
Right.
very interesting thing. So, Adriana is mixed. She is Latina, and she is black,
Okay.
and she's also white. So she's like, she's a very beautiful mix.
Okay.
But so yeah, so what do you do when you try to get over a breakup, or what I mean, you try to get over someone, but you're not
What
trying
they
to.
say is that in order to get over somebody else, you got to get up under somebody.
Yeah. Well, that's what I did. I was trying to look for someone, because I wanted to get over this chick. I really wanted to get over her, and I wanted to feel better, because I knew that if I didn't try, that I would feel worse, and I don't know what would happen if that happened.
Right.
So, I went online, and I searched for only black women and Latinas,
Okay.
because that's what Adriana was. You know what I mean? And that makes sense,
Mm,
right? That
mhm,
makes sense.
mhm, mhm.
I'm definitely not the only guy, or and anyone to do that.
You're
So
right.
we all do that, right? So I was trying to do that, and that's where all this sort of whole thing started. I was just, like I said, I made a lot of mistakes, not the same ones that I made with her,
Okay.
but I made mistakes in that, like I said before, I was not upfront about, not upfront. I wasn't hiding things, but I
Mhm,
would later on go on to find out the importance of saying, basically, don't waste my time, because here's what I'm looking for, here's what I'm not looking for,
right.
you know, and um, and if I had only used those words, but also coupled with the fact that online dating really started to work for me when I hit 30 years old.
Mm,
It's just, I guess online dating was just not meant to work for me necessarily that early on.
mm,
Because, like I said, girls in their 20s don't really know what the hell they're doing. A
mm,
lot like guys, you know what I mean? Like we're all sort of just trying to figure it out, you know what I mean?
right.
But it wasn't really it was more to my detriment than to my benefit,
Mm,
because I was always losing out. I was always being like, well, like I kind of got the same thing that I got with Adriana. I was like, I always got excuses. Oh, okay, I'll call you later. Blah 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 blah. And then they flaked out, and all that stuff. It's interesting because I think I used the right photos for my profile because I
Mhm.
met a lot of women and I went on a lot more first dates than I got second dates.
Okay.
And like I said, it was, yeah, I mean, it sounds superficial that I was, just kind of intentionally looking for to date a black woman or Latinas because that's what, this girl was. But at the
Right.
same time, not really. And that's why I wrote my book. And that's how I know everything I know because of this one person. And
So in essence, when you swiped right, you were basically the dragon.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was it was kind of like this really long rebound kind of,
Hmm.
process. And I wasn't trying to use anybody because I actually really wanted to, meet someone and,
Hmm.
just sort of pursue an actual relationship that I could have had with, Adriana. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because I felt like I was kind of cheated out of it
Mm.
by my own impatience and my own, obviously blatant stupidity when I said that to her. But
Hmm.
just, I was trying to make up for that.
Hmm.
Um and then, it's just weird. I will say this though. Over the years, it has been over 10 years since that happened. But over
Hmm.
the years, I saw Adriana 2 years after the fact that when we last saw each other, um, and then 2 years later, which actually literally we ended up literally 4 years after meeting on the same beach that we met on. We met on the same beach almost 4 years to that day.
Wow.
And it was very it got I was in my feelings a lot of time, and so I was, I told her a lot of things that I thought over the past 4 years.
Hmm.
And I got I mean, I'm not gonna go and like put all my business out there, but basically yes, like every sort of classic Hollywood romantic story or TV show or anything like that, a lot of this story is basically about one person. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And yes, it has been over 10 years. I am single. I got out of a relationship that I was dating like this Korean American woman for about a year. I was engaged to her, it didn't work out. So now I'm
Mm.
single. But I do like to go back to the fact, Adriana. And I do want to say this. Yes, I'm not over her. I don't really care how that sounds because a lot of women have told me that. A lot of people have told me that. And I think it's healthy to admit, what I mean, when you're not over someone. And I do
Mhm.
want to say that even though this makes it even more pathetic. So even though we literally only went out twice,
Mhm.
she was still to this day to me is probably the love of my life. You know
Okay,
what I
so
mean?
so Adriana, it's Adriana that you're not over.
Yeah, Adriana is, yeah,
Okay,
she's
okay,
not the
okay,
girl.
okay.
Yeah, and and I feel forever grateful for that experience. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
Mhm.
who really gets to say that they met love of their life? I mean, of course, if you get
Yeah,
married, I
yeah.
guess you could say that person might be the love of your life. Or you may be the one that got away, um, everything like that. But at the same time, yeah, it is something that still to this day is one of the biggest regrets that I have. I'm like, don't
Mm.
if I could time travel like fucking Back to the Future that shit and time travel and knock some goddamn sense into my 24-year-old self, say, hey man, calm down, wait, don't send her that
Like
text, do
hold
not
those
send.
lips shut, right?
Yes, don't just shut the fuck up. Don't call her bad mom because, and I would literally tell myself everything that's happened the past 10 years. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like
right.
from this book to this channel, and
Mhm.
I'm okay with talking about it.
Right,
I'm okay. I mean, we're not on a talking basis anymore, but it's
right.
just like in general, yeah. So I'm sorry, I kind of hijacked this interview from you.
No, that's okay because I mean, and I get it because what you're saying is completely cathartic. I mean, what you're doing or how you're channeling all of this energy, right,
Mhm.
is completely cathartic for you.
Yeah.
And obviously, there was not a sense of closure. There was not, you know, a forgiveness. I mean, was there? Did we not? Did we not hear that part of the story? Was there a, I forgive you, but yeah, no, still, I don't want to do this.
Um. No, she was so fucking pissed at me for it.
Okay,
I mean, like
so
when
I
yeah,
mean,
when I brought
mhm,
it up on the beach 4 years later, like when I was like, I literally said I remember it now. It was a long time ago, but I told her, I was like, I was telling you, like if only I hadn't said those words to you back then, and she just froze. She sat up, and she literally like just like her voice changed. She was like, "Don't worry about it," and she was fucking pissed that I even brought that up. But you know what? Like I said, I yes, your reaction is like literally the same reaction that anybody would. It is true. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like if I had, I mean, it's common sense. You don't call anyone that, especially if they actually have kids. Oh my
Right.
god. You know what I
Right.
mean? So especially if you're dating them and want to keep dating them, you know what I mean? Anything like that, like
Right.
it's not. And like I said, it's like we all have. I hadn't really I had taken dating for granted. I thought it was just stupid. I thought it was pointless. I thought that what I mean. Like I didn't need anybody up until that point. But then
Mm.
the universe sort of dangles this person in front of me, and then basically yanks them back and said, "Nope." You know what I mean? And it's like, yes, I have this channel, I have a book, all this stuff. But in the end, like the biggest L that I have that I will never fucking get over is this girl. You know what I
Is
mean? And it's
is the
and
one
yes,
that got away. Right.
this is bad because no, I didn't have sex with her. No, I didn't even get to hold her hand. You know what I mean? I did a lot of stuff with, like other women, later on, but like with her, like I mean, like I didn't get to do any of that stuff. And yet in the back of my mind, I still know that one of the truest things that I know in my life is that she is the love of my life. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And I guess I think what I'm trying to say is that I think that in general, I think a lot of Asian men are kind of like that too, because
Mm.
Asian men are very, we are kind of romantics. They're true romantics in that sense. You know what I
Mm.
mean? That's why you see a lot of these K dramas and stuff like that. That actually kind of has a lot of what I'm talking about right now.
Mhm.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? We're more sort of, because Asian men, while we don't necessarily, we feel like sometimes we are sort of, how the media portrays us in terms of not showing our emotions and stuff like that. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we don't have emotions or that
Mhm.
we don't experience them or sort of vent in different ways. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Like a lot
And
of us, yeah.
and I to a degree, ooh, sorry, I just hit my little nose ring there.
That's all.
But and and I think that is probably the allure of Asian men for Black women,
Mm-hmm.
um, is because and I'm again, you'll see these women who will look at these K dramas,
Uh-huh.
and their initial thought process is, "Oh my God, I really want that. I
Uh-huh.
really want to have that." And and so therefore they'll join an AMBW group. And sometimes I have to ask, when I'm vetting women in particular, are you a K-drama fan? Did you come over here just because you think that, you're going to find romantic guy who's going to come and sweep you off your feet and so on and so forth. And again, to make sure that women are not fetishizing, or that people are not fetishizing each other, but I appreciate the fact that you kind of confirm it and say, no, yeah, Asian men are, are a romantic group of men. This is, but I could also say the same thing about Latino men, particularly, like Puerto Ricans and Dominican. These
Uh-huh.
men are just, they're, this passionate kind of, for them, it's more of like a passionate kind of romanticism, as opposed to, you know, as opposed to, I guess, is there like a such thing as like Asian romanticism? It's like, but we, yes, when we watch those K dramas, even though it is not real life in any way, shape, or form, it's something that we still want. It's
Uh-huh.
the fairy tale that we've all been raised with, but as we get older, see is not obviously happening. So,
Right.
you know, so yeah, and it's so I guess maybe I want to just caution that, yes, this is an aspect. And so would you say that, and let me back up a little bit, because I sometimes I'll like get ready to start going on a tangent, realize I'm about to do that, and then I have to pull myself back. But would you say that your experience, or your romantic experience, or your sense of romanticism is typical of Asian men? Or would you say that, you'd say, no, that's my experience, and I just want to, I don't want people to fetishize, us in that way.
I feel like I feel like it could be because a lot of Asian men that I know don't necessarily approach women in person.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard that a lot, and I've heard that a lot from my friends or other guys that I've talked to about it. And they, yeah, I mean, for the most part, a lot of them are shy, but I feel like a lot of them sort of don't necessarily, they don't need to, be so stereotypically aggressive, like basically aggressive in the sense, sort of like the Western sense, you know what I mean? How a lot of other, Western men will do it, like a lot of other, Caucasian or, black or, Latino or Native American, whatever. Because you definitely get that a lot from, from them, you know what I mean? Like from literally
Mm-hmm.
any other type of guy except Asian men, right? Any other
Mm-hmm.
type of man will approach a woman in the club or at the bar or
Mm-hmm.
out at the grocery store, wherever they see you. But I feel like a lot of Asian men, and I guess, yeah, I'm not trying to speak for anyone or for anyone else but me, but I also do at the same time do feel like Asian men are secure enough where they don't have to,
Mm-hmm.
because they've been raised by their parents to basically do almost focus on everything but love. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And it's very interesting because then you think, okay, well, then what are the parents' expectations about their children's love lives? Like, how will their son or daughter meet, a husband or wife and have kids and basically keep, their bloodline going, basically,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's kind of important. A lot of people think about that stuff,
Right.
um, but at the same time, it's like, also I remember when I was young and having or younger, I guess, or having conversations with my parents about it, and I think I get my sense of romanticism a lot from them,
Mm,
because they, unlike me, they had the patience to wait for it to happen.
okay.
They met through a mutual friend, one of my mom's exes actually, but
Mm,
he introduced them, and I think it happened sort of on its own, more organically.
mm-hmm.
And like I said, I mean, just being honest, I don't expect that to happen with the girl that I've been talking about. Um, Nothing is gonna happen. That's completely dead at
Yeah.
this point. But at the same time, like I feel like, I'm okay with admitting that even though it's nothing is gonna happen, that I do, genuinely believe from the bottom of my heart that she was or is the love of my life. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I might meet someone else and get married and have kids and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
how many times do you hear from, from maybe older, older, more lived women, or not lived, but like, women with more experience or men with more experience, and they're older and they reflect and they're talking about, stuff in the past, like past flings or past loves or whatever, that didn't have anything to do with their marriage, and they talk about, the one that got away,
Oh yeah.
right? Yeah,
My
all that
mom
stuff.
definitely will still tell me about it. Yeah, my mother has one.
You know what? We all do. I feel like almost everybody does.
Right.
And here's the thing too. Like, it goes. I one of my favorite questions to ask anybody, is like, if you, let's say, if you did have a love of your life, right, or a really emotional yet sort of ended really horribly painful experience, would you erase those memories from your mind? And well, what do you think their answer is?
Would I erase the memory of the person or would I erase the memory of the experience
Well,
that caused us to break up?
like both, you know what I mean? Like if you could
Mm,
ultimately, because I'm assuming, like we all been through bad breakups or bad heartache or whatever. But if you could ultimately, and the worst part of that is that no matter how much you love that person, maybe deep down it ended badly, and that was
mhm,
inevitable, and now you're either
mhm,
with someone else or you're alone because of it. So if
mhm.
like I asked those people, yeah, I mean, if you could do it, right, and if they could do it, what would your response be, and what do you think the general response that I've heard is?
My response would be that I would probably erase the memory um of the experience that caused us to break up because that in and of itself is painful. But
Mm-hmm.
romanticizing that particular person
Mm-hmm.
um leaves me with a sense of longing and desire and drive still.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I would definitely erase the issue that caused us to break up because that was painful. Um, and but I definitely want to keep the memory of that person simply because the saying it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. Um,
Okay.
because you know then what real love looks like.
Right.
And so I believe, and I would like to say that I think that everybody else that you've talked to has probably agreed in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're correct. They all, not one person said that they would entirely erase every memory they have of that person.
Hmm.
And I think that goes to show that no matter how, that all these types of people that come from different walks of life, and different personalities, and backgrounds and all that stuff, all the one thing they have in common is that feeling of, ultimately, I'm gonna say it, controversial word here, but love. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? No matter how tough you think you are, or how smart, or how above the notion of some silly ass fucking thing called love is, everybody wants it. And if you're
Yeah.
lucky enough to feel it, no matter how long or how short or whatever, that feeling is gonna stick with you.
Hmm.
It's like ultimate bee sting, right? You
Hmm.
just you get stung by it, and it never leaves you, no matter how old, or how how old you are, or no matter what happens, if you get married, if you have kids, grandkids, or
Right.
whatever. You know what I mean? And that's such a great feeling that I think not even like, the best screenwriters in the world could try and duplicate, for as far as like film and TV and music and all that stuff.
But they do. They try to
Yeah,
duplicate
they
that.
try.
They try to tell us what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
They try to tell us, that love is this romantic butterfly feeling, and, and kisses every day and all this, that, and the other. And I think that that's why people are often kind of don't really know what love looks like, because because they've been shown in media what they think it's supposed to look like, but
Mhm.
in actuality it looks different for everybody,
Yeah.
you and of course, have you read the five love languages?
My ex tried to keep pressure me to read it. I never got around to doing it.
Okay, very informative book, would very strongly encourage you to read that,
Okay.
as well as the four agreements. um, but basically what that book talks about is the languages of love, and how and what it is that that looks like. And yes, there is romantic, notions, and so that would include like touching and, kissing and, being all smoochy and stuff like that. But me personally,
Mhm.
um I like it when I'm touched gently, or, when you put your arm around me or something to that effect. But big public displays of affection make me highly uncomfortable,
Mm.
So what would be comfortable for you in, in displaying your affection could be very uncomfortable for me. And if you did that to me, I'd be like, bro, right? Why are you doing that? Like, you don't really love me if you do shit like that, because
Yeah.
I don't like that. That makes me uncomfortable. And it's not that I don't love you. It's just that that's just not the way that I do things, But maybe I'd be the type of person to cook you a meal
Mhm.
and, maybe massage your feet, or maybe buy you a present, or maybe look at you and be like, yeah, that's my man, that type of thing,
Mhm.
and and one of those ways is going to affect you more than others. One of the, if I cook you something and you'd be like, this bitch cooked my favorite meal, I love her, that type of thing, or she called me her man, I like that, it's
Yeah.
we all have different ways of expressing this thing called love. And you're right. Everybody wants to feel it. Everybody wants to have that. And so when we think about these romantic notions, I, for me, that is not what clicks.
Mhm.
For you, these romantic notions of love, I'm beyond that. I'm past that. I've seen what love looks like, and I know a genuine display and what it looks like, particularly when it's aimed in my direction.
Mm.
Um, so when it's not, when it's not coming at me in the ways that I need for it to come at me, when the love is not coming at me aimed in the, in the way that I need for it to, it doesn't look like love to me. So and I'm saying that going back to what you were saying about, everybody wants love and everybody, but it's like, yeah, I do want love, but I have it in my with my family and my
Yeah.
friends and people who I know genuinely ride for me. So so if it's not coming at me from an outside influence, if it's not from somebody that I'm dating, if it's not coming at me in the right way, I'd rather not have it. You
Right.
know,
No, I,
if it's
yeah.
not coming at me right, I don't want it.
And I feel like because I don't know if I'm right here, but I think I might be. I don't know. So I think that kind of what you're trying to get at is that you want love to that kind of romantic love to feel special in the sense in the only sense that romantic love can feel special, which no matter the person or whatever, real love, it's gonna sound controversial. I'll say it. You can't find it online. You can't go to the
It's
grocery
hard.
store. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't go to the grocery store and find it. It's not like
yeah,
food. You know what I mean? It
yeah.
literally has to find you. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
And it's like one of those uncontrollable things that's outside of your control,
mhm,
like life, right? Like pregnancy or like death. You know what I mean?
mhm.
These things are inevitable, but it's not something that you are supposed to control and look for, right?
Right.
It's something that when it happens, and maybe there's a bigger reason for it. I don't know, but it is one of those things, like I said, and it kind of like that's why I'm going back to your point is that you don't want. I feel like you maybe you don't want that feeling to feel less important than it should be. You want it to remain special. You want it
Mm,
to remain something that I guess is kind of earned
mm,
by
mm.
it, but it's earned by people, I guess, everyone in general having enough patience and maturity to ultimately let it happen on its own.
Right,
You
as
know what I
opposed
mean?
to trying to force it and, and have it be this romantic thing that you see in the media,
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think about, I'm a teacher, right?
Mm,
So, as an educator, I see kids in the hall on a regular basis, being all cuddly and smoochy and then, I get on Instagram and I see, kids acting in a particular way, that, has other people going, oh, they're so in love. But, I think that those are just the physical manifestations, but let's get some hard times in there and let's see how that works out for you.
right.
That kind of thing. Let's get some financial issues in there and,
Yeah.
and see what love looks like then.
Hmm.
And maybe I'm just an old curmudgeon. But it's just like, again, I don't carry those romantic notions with me anymore because it's just like I have been through, the ringer. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. In the meantime, I'm out here living my best life and having, the most fun and, and still dating. I like to date and it's it but it's not for me it's sometimes a particularly online, it's a, hey, I want to go to the movies tonight. You want, my treat. Do you want to come? Or something to that effect. But I don't know. I just guess if it's not what I'm looking for, because I guess I'm so far along in age that I'm just not playing games anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's like that butterfly feeling. I definitely want to feel that, but that doesn't, it's not like seeing this super cute guy anymore and going, oh, he's so cute and butterflies. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? For me at this age, it's, oh, he's super cute. And he has a 401k. And he,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
and it's like, oh, and that's when the butterflies come.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. You are not wrong at all. I feel like, I mean, as we get older, we understand, that we want,
Yeah, it
more
changes.
security.
It
Yeah.
changes. Uh-huh.
And so no, I think that's definitely, a very realistic expectation. I feel like that's, yeah, that kind of honesty and forwardness is good. And like I
Mhm.
said before, if I had, well, just in general, if I had been more honest or upfront, I would say upfront, about
Mhm.
the things that I want, things that I'm looking for, especially when it comes to online, I would have saved myself a lot of time, a lot of trouble
Mhm.
and heartache and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And but yeah, like I said, it's even with all those experiences with meeting.
Mhm.
Oh my God, I've definitely gone on over 200 dates now in the past 10 years. A lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You
So
working. You out here really, you trying to even out those odds, ain't you?
oh yeah. And I feel like again, like I was chasing something that like kind of, like evaded me for a while because of how chaotic and how superficial the mind of of 20 something year old girl or woman is.
Mhm.
And also I guess I wasn't necessarily what they were looking for. But it just didn't help that both parties were basically just kind of fucking idiots. But I mean,
Mhm.
this is my opinion. I'm in my 30s now, so my perspective is a little bit different.